pearls. There was a peasant who once found himself doing a great service to the king. He done him a great service such that the king felt so utterly indebted to him and knew that he just needed to pay him back. But how can I reward him, wondered the king. Should I give him a sack of gold? Should I give him a bag of pearls? These things mean virtually nothing to me. If I'm to give him a gift to show my gratitude, I need to truly give him something from myself, something that I will feel, something that I will miss, a gift that constitutes a sacrifice for me. And so the king had a nightingale who sang the sweetest songs a human ear had ever heard. He treasured the nightingale over all else. It soothed his stressful moods. Life was simply more bearable with the nightingale. So he summoned the peasant to his palace and he said, I owe you so much. You helped me so much. I love this bird. It means everything to me. But in appreciation for your loyalty and devotion, I want you to have it. And the peasant looks and says, Your Majesty, I can't thank you enough. I'm really grateful. Still, months later, the king was missing his bird. I need a few moments just to listen to its singing away once more. So he made his way all the way to the peasant's village, knocked on the door. Your Majesty, he says, how are you enjoying my gift? Isn't it exquisite? And the peasant looks and he says, to tell you the truth, I was grateful for the gift. I really was. But I was so surprised about how tough the bird's meat was. Quite inedible. Still, I cooked it with lots of potatoes and it gave the stew an interesting flavor. Someone gives you a gift. There's two considerations. First, where was the gift given from? The heart and soul, or merely the shelf or pocketbook? You know how they say it's the thought that counts by definition? Is it something you're doing to discharge an obligation because you feel you have to? Or is it coming from a deeper place? Something you're really giving from your essence? Are you investing yourself, as it were, into the gift? That's the consideration insofar as the giver. But the second consideration is insofar as the recipient. Do you appreciate what's being given to you? Do you cherish the time, the energy, the passion that went into this gift? Do you just assume this is your entitlement? You owe it to me after all I did for you? You know, in Hebrew, there's an expression, magiali, entitlement. It's a delusion built on self-centeredness. And to be sure, these considerations are not just limited to material gifts. There's the gift of time. There's the gift of friendship. There's the gift of love. As the benefactor, when I give you of my time, is it coming from a good place or a guilty place? When I offer my friendship, is it because of care or convenience? When I share my love, is it my essence, I really love you, or expedience, what's in it for me? And again, as for the recipient, do you really fully appreciate the time, truly value the friendship, or genuinely cherish the love? All this comes into play in the opening of the book of Esther, as we'll be reading about next Thursday night on the festival of Purim. The Persian Emperor King Ahasuerus throws an enormous party to celebrate his consolidation of power on the Persian throne. It's a lavish, over-the-top party, a drunken, decadent bacchanal that lasts for a full 180 days, followed by an after-party for another 7 days. In the Megillah relaying to us the story, frankly, the only relevant detail of that party is the moment the mad king summoned his wife, Queen Vashti, to come in all her glory. She refuses, and he ultimately does a Henry VIII on her. That, as we know, ultimately changed the course of history because the king is lonely. He ends up marrying Esther. Haman has his plot. The Jews are ultimately spared. But the early part of the opening chapter of the Megillah, a whole chunk dedicated to describing the intricate detail of the party, the vessels, the utensils, the materials, the fabrics, fine cotton embroidered with cords of linen on silver rods, marble columns, couches of gold and silver on a pavement of green, white shell and onyx marble. Who cares? You know, when we read the current Torah portions describing in dazzling detail the making of the sanctuary and the priestly garb, etc., then it makes sense. It's necessary in order to convey the building instructions in fabricating God's holy abode on earth. So I get all the detail of all the fine linen, gold, copper, everything else that went into the making of everything. But why do I need to know that intricate specific of some boorish Babylonian buffoon's party? And yet, the message the Megillah is conveying is an important one. When King Ahasuerus throws a serious party, he goes all in. Not for him was a mere 100-day feast or goblets from silver instead of gold. He makes a serious party and he throws everything he has at his disposal at the party. This king is not going to settle for mediocrity or even normal standards of a feast. He's just not going to get away with doing a nice job or a fine job. Never. If he can have it over the top, he'll have it just that way. If he can drink for 187 days, so be it. If he can give his people a memory of a lifetime, that's what he's going to do, nothing less. Now, of course, King Ahasuerus is a fool. He wasted his money and creativity on such a trivial, senseless endeavor. And his motives in throwing this bash were far from holy. It was his way of trying to demonstrate his subservience of the Jewish people and his complete destruction of the temple. Still, the detail of that story is deliberately recorded in the Megillah to teach us an invaluable lesson. Even this crazy king understood that in life, you've got to give it all you've got. Don't do things by half measures. Don't live a life of quiet desperation. You have to suck the marrow out of life. Carpe diem. Life calls on us to live it to the fullest. Or as they say in modern jargon, go big or go home. Sure, he's a drunken dictator. If even he understood this, how much more so do we need to understand this? How much more so do we need to appreciate and can learn from him how to invest ourselves, everything that we do, to show up to life and to love with every fiber of our being, to flex all of our soul and emotional muscle, to hold nothing back. The problem was Queen Vashti. She's already a Persian princess who grew up in the lap of luxury, exceptionally spoiled, you might say. Even as her husband throws her this incredible feast and encourages her to come join him, she refuses. She doesn't appreciate the initiative invested, the energy expended, the love lavished in making this happen. Reminds me of that girl who came to the rabbi and said, "Rabbi, I'm so spoiled. I'm so lucky. Everybody wants to marry me. Now I've got Chaim and Moshe both chasing me. Which one of those two is going to be the lucky one? Which one of those two is going to marry me?" And the rabbi said, "Moshe is going to marry you. Chaim will be the lucky one." She doesn't appreciate the initiative invested, Vashti. She doesn't appreciate everything that her husband put into this. And as a result, she's put to death. And whilst that's the madness of an inebriated tyrant, it does reflect on how assuming a sense of entitlement is a very dangerous thought process, void of gratitude, and can be deadly to relationships. Real gratitude begins when my sense of entitlement ends. You know, there was a CFO of a company who asked his CEO, "What happens if we invest so much in people and then they leave us?" And the CEO countered, "What happens if we don't and they stay?" Entitlement is the playing field of the narcissist. They'll invest very little in their relationships, but expect to get a high yield in return. Ahasuerus teaches us, don't settle for smallness. Give life all you've got. Utilize every potential, every resource, every opportunity, every faculty, and every talent. Don't squander a moment and don't squander any aspect of your soul. Make the most of life, maximize your time, and reap the rewards. Now, on this coming Shabbat, we will fulfill the mitzvah of eradicating Amalek. By definition, each year, we are biblically mandated to recall that which Amalek sought to do to us all through the course of history, and to eradicate that threat from our lives. Haman, of course, the prime villain of the Purim story, was a direct descendant, so we always have the mitzvah to recall this on the Shabbat preceding Purim, and thus to fulfill the mitzvah of remembering what Amalek did and to always be committed to eradicating him. Now, as much as that had practical applications in biblical and temple times, in the context of eradicating the very real enemy, and as much as that might apply in the broader context of anti-Semitism today, and our need to always combat it, there is still an altogether different message as it applies in our own day-to-day living. You know, mysticism observes that Amalek, the Hebrew word, has the same numerical value as the Hebrew word safek, meaning doubt. In the biblical story, that's what happened. They looked to sow doubt and confusion in the mindset of the Jew. The Jews had just come from Egypt. They just come from over 2 centuries of servitude. They're making their way to Sinai. Amalek obstructs the process. And can you imagine, after being filled with so much fatigue and exhaustion and trauma and pain and anxiety, and suddenly now confronting a new enemy, Amalek sought to make the Jewish nation have doubts, question the very purpose, their moral calling, like, oh no, not again. And in that sense, Amalek is a very real concern in our own lives as well. Doubt, in general, is a crippling mindset. Walking around unsure of yourself, of your goals, of where you should go, of what you should do, constantly grappling with what you want out of life, always struggling to determine what it is life wants out of you. That's one of the nemesis of the human experience. It's what sows confusion. It's what leads to listlessness. One of the worst feelings in the world is having to doubt something you thought was unquestionable. In fact, doubt kills more dreams than failure ever will. Indeed, if, as the Talmud says, there is no greater joy than resolving doubt, we can appreciate how debilitating doubt can be and how refreshing resolving it is. How do we remove such a threat? How do we deal with a plague so endemic in our lives? Indeed, after an October 7th, when yet again we're battle fatigued and we're exhausted and we start to question, we start to wonder, how do we get rid of that mindset? Says the Torah, eradicate every remnant of Amalek. Look the enemy square in the eyes and find the weakness within. Every adversary has a weak spot. The challenge is to find it and strike at it. Whenever you find yourself doubting how far you can go, just remember how far you've come. Remember everything you've faced, all the battles you've won, all the fears you've overcome. We can cross the rivers of doubt and discouragement on the bridge of faith and self-belief. And here again, we come to an episode of the Megillah that always resonates with me, perhaps more so than any other. It's the exchange between Mordecai and Esther, Queen Esther, when Haman's plot becomes uncovered. Mordecai instructs Esther, you're now in that power position, go to the king, appeal on behalf of the people. She counters, but no one can go to the king without being summoned first. If they do so, they'll be put to death. And I, she says, have not been asked to see the king already for 30 days. And Mordecai counters in what I believe to be one of the most beautiful, most profound, most compelling lines in all of the Tanakh. If you remain silent at this moment, salvation will yet come from somewhere else, while you might well be destroyed. Is this then not why you are in this royal position of prominence? Esther doubts herself. I can't do this. I'm not strong enough to confront this. And Mordecai counters, you are where you are and you have to make the most of the opportunity. Don't doubt yourself. Whenever we find ourselves in whatever positions, we have to exploit that, utilize that to the best of our ability, whether for our own benefit or for the collective whole. You're stronger than you can imagine. You're strategically placed with unique gifts and talents, and you need to exploit that for the benefit of the greater good, for both yourself and for those around you. You know what our deepest fear is? It's not failure. Our deepest fear is actually success. Our deepest fear is not that we're inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It's our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You're a child of God. You're in a royal position of prominence. You're created in the divine image. You're playing small doesn't serve you and doesn't serve the world. It's not why you're here. We're all meant to shine. We're born to unleash that incredibly godly spirit within. And when we let our light shine, we illuminate the lives of all those around us. Because when we're liberated from our own doubts and fears, then our presence automatically liberates others as well. So Amalek, Haman, that we recall of during this time, they're symbolic of the struggles we endure and the doubts we encounter in the face of them. Every conflict we encounter in life is filled with both positive and negative potential. It could be a source of inspiration and enlightenment and learning and transformation and growth, or it could be a source of detriment and rage and fear and entrapment and resistance. But that choice is not up to our opponents, it's up to us and our willingness to face and work through them. And let's take this finally one step further. The evil name Amalek, quite compellingly, is made up of 4 Hebrew letters, each representing another spiritual giant on the most famous Jewish chain. Ayin of Amalek represents Amram, the father of Moses. Mem of Amalek is Moses himself, Moshe. The Lamed of Amalek is Levi, Moshe's great-grandfather, and the Kuf of Amalek is Kahas, Moshe's grandfather. In other words, Levi was the third of the tribes, the son of Jacob. His son was Kahas, who in turn had a son called Amram, who was the father of Moshe. Each of the 4 letters of Amalek, Amram, Moshe, Levi, Kahas. Amalek embodies the names of Moshe's lineage. What's the message here? When dealing with doubt, you're not alone. Picture, if you will, Moshe. He finally succeeds to free the Jewish nation from more than 2 centuries of servitude. He expresses doubt and concern about his mission. Dear God, what do I do? They won't believe me. Dear God, why do you allow evil to befall this nation? But ultimately, he prevails. And now barely a week into the journey, and he's confronted with another ruthless enemy, seeking to annihilate the Jewish nation. What must have gone through his mind in that moment? But he stares at the enemy. He looks at Amalek and he sees where he comes from. Levi, his great-grandfather. Kahas, his grandfather. Amram, his father. And then he looks at himself. Moshe, I'm not alone. That's a compelling message for all of us, especially today. Even as we, again, face all kinds of battles and all kinds of intimidation from around the world, we're not alone. We've been down this road before. We've prevailed before. We've won before. We will win again. You know, they tell a story of a cargo ship that sank one night and this one sailor survived. He finds a lifeboat, he rigs a sail, he turns his eyes to the sky to chart a course by the direction of the stars. He falls asleep. Clouds roll in, and for the next many nights, he could no longer see the stars. He thought he was on course, but there's no way now to be certain. And as the days roll on, he started to waste and began to have doubts. Had he set his course right? Was he still going on towards his destiny? Was he horribly lost? You see, when you think and you believe you're alone on the high seas, then you start harboring doubts. Then you start questioning what you're doing. That's Amalek. That's self-destructive. But if you remember who you are, where you come from, and that you're not alone, then you'll recall and appreciate that you know truth, you saw the stars, you charted the course. Now hold on to that without fear. Despair, which way, what now, what do I say to my kids, what do I tell myself, all that doubt which holds you tight in its grip. Sometimes we stand on one side of the glass looking at all the apparent happy people, and on the other side ourselves, our own wound hidden, that secret about ourselves festering and separating us from the others. And it's in those moments that we should understand we're not alone. Joy is at hand, just there on the other side of the glass. All we have to do is put down the pretense of the glass that separates us. Remember where you come from, remember what you're made of, remember the support around you, and you will come out the other side smiling and determined when, like the Jews in the Purim story, we too will experience light and happiness, joy and glory once more. May we indeed merit this in our personal lives and indeed in our collective lives as individuals and as Jews for now and forever.